My sister Lisa just announced she was tripling my rent to $6,800 in front of our entire family. She stood there in her $3,000 suit, smirking like she'd finally put me in my place for good. But what she didn't know was something that would change everything in the next 20 minutes. Something that would turn her smug smile into pure shock. If you've ever been underestimated by family, if you've ever been the one they counted out, this story is for you. Hit that like button if you believe in justice, and let's dive into how years of quiet planning led to the most satisfying moment of my life. Growing up as Lisa's younger sister meant living in a shadow so vast it swallowed me whole. She was the golden one, Harvard Law, summa cum laude, making partner at 35. I was the ordinary one, a state school graduate with a property management degree, working as an assistant manager at a mid-sized firm. Every family gathering followed the same cruel script. "Aunt Sandra, did you hear Lisa just closed a $10 million merger?" someone would gush. Then inevitably the sympathetic head tilt toward me. "And Jessica, you're still at that property thing, right?" Yes, I was still at that property thing. And I loved my work, walking through buildings, studying market values, seeing potential where others saw problems. It fascinated me. But fascination wasn't currency in my family. To them, especially to Lisa, I was the underachiever, the one who needed guidance. Correction. Tough love. For 5 years, I rented a 2-bedroom apartment on Riverside Drive, one of Grandma's old buildings. Lisa managed it pro bono, always reminding us of her sacrifice. She set my rent at $2,200, calling it a family discount. The market rate was $2,400, so it wasn't much of a discount, but she never let me forget her generosity. "Most people in your salary range couldn't afford this neighborhood," she would say with that patronizing smile that made my stomach turn. And I believed her. I paid every month on time, even when the dishwasher broke and she took 3 months to fix it. Even when the heating failed during the dead of winter, I had to sleep under 3 blankets while she took her sweet time calling a repair service. I never complained, because that was my role, the little sister who should be grateful for scraps. But 3 years before that fateful Tuesday, something changed. Something Lisa never knew about. When Grandma was still alive, I helped her sort through her finances every Sunday afternoon. She was sharp, even in her 80s, but she trusted me to explain her investment statements, to organize her records. We'd sit at her kitchen table, surrounded by manila folders and bank statements, and she'd tell me stories about building her little real estate empire from nothing. One evening, as winter light faded through her lace curtains, she pulled me aside and pressed a business card into my weathered hand. "Your sister means well," she whispered, her eyes bright with a secret, "but she doesn't see everything. Sometimes the quiet ones are the smartest, Jessica. Remember that when the time comes." I didn't understand then. But months later, after her passing, her personal lawyer, not the family attorney Lisa used, called me with news that would change everything. Grandma had left something for me outside of the main estate, a private inheritance. Enough for a strategic investment, enough to turn the tables completely. The next 2 years were a masterclass in patience. While Lisa continued her lectures about fiscal responsibility and standing on my own feet, I was quietly building something she couldn't see. I researched property laws, studied market trends, and saved every penny. I learned about holding companies and private investments. I discovered that the building I lived in, the one Lisa lorded over me, was actually struggling financially. The previous owner was drowning in debt, desperate to sell, and with Grandma's gift, combined with my savings and a strategic loan, I made him an offer he couldn't refuse. The purchase went through a holding company I'd set up, Riverside Holdings LLC. Every legal paper, every renovation permit, every rent collection went through my business. Lisa never bothered to check the public records. She was too busy being important. For 3 years, I watched her collect management fees while I collected actual rent payments. For 3 years, I endured her condescension while secretly being her landlord. The irony was so perfect it almost hurt. And then came that Tuesday evening in Grandma's living room. Lisa stood tall, pen in hand, legal pad ready, like she was about to deliver a corporate presentation. "Your current rent is $2,200, far below market rate," she announced, clicking through graphs she'd printed in full color. "Comparable units are going for at least $6,800. I've been subsidizing your lifestyle for 5 years. That's over $200,000 out of my pocket." Aunt Ashley gasped like Lisa had donated a kidney. "Lisa, you're such a saint." Lisa smiled, the kind of smile that wanted applause. "I don't want praise, Ashley. I just want fairness. Jessica, you're 32 now. It's time you learned to stand on your own feet. Effective next month, your rent will be $6,800. The silence was deafening. I looked around at 15 faces, my parents, Stephen and Emily, my uncles, Andrew and Matthew, my cousins, my Aunt Betty, all waiting for someone, anyone, to defend me. No one did. Not after 5 years of paying rent on time. Not after helping Grandma with her books while Lisa was too busy climbing her corporate ladder. Nothing. She extended the new lease across the coffee table like a weapon. "I'll need this signed today." I stared at the paper, then discreetly checked my phone. One text I'd sent 20 minutes earlier. "On my way, documents ready." The response was already there, 15 minutes out. I wasn't the same Jessica they thought I was. Not anymore. Lisa mistook my silence for surrender. "Let me make this educational for everyone," she said, pulling up Zillow listings on her tablet. "Here's what Jessica's apartment should actually cost. $7,200, $7,500, $8,000. I'm actually giving her a discount at $6,800. My phone buzzed quietly. 10 minutes out. Uncle Daniel cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Lisa, that's quite a jump from $2,200. "It's market rate," she cut him off sharply. "Successful people pay market rate. Jessica works in property management. She should understand this better than anyone." Laughter rippled across the room. My cousin Mark smirked. "Guess you'll need about 4 roommates, Jess." Every word dug deeper. Every smirk was another reminder of the role they thought I'd never escape. Mediocre, dependent, failing. Lisa leaned closer, her voice dripping with condescension. "Sign the lease, Jessica, or start packing. I've already got 3 applications from Columbia law students willing to pay $7,000. The threat hung in the air like smoke, and I almost smiled. Because Lisa didn't know the truth. She didn't know that the building she thought she controlled, the one she used to lord over me, was mine. Every brick, every window, every square foot of hardwood flooring belonged to me, and tonight, with the whole family watching, she was about to discover just how wrong she'd been about everything. The doorbell rang. Perfect timing. My heart didn't race with anxiety, it thrilled with anticipation. This was the moment 3 years of careful planning had built toward. Lisa huffed with annoyance. Who could that be at this hour? I stood, walking calmly to the front door, feeling 15 pairs of eyes on my back. When I opened it, a man in a dark suit stepped inside, leather briefcase in hand. Mr. Carver, my lawyer, though none of them knew that yet. He nodded to me, professionally, then addressed the room with the kind of authority that instantly commanded attention. "Good evening. I'm Attorney Carver, representing Riverside Holdings, LLC. I have important documents regarding the tenants of this building." The air in the room shifted. A ripple of confusion spread across every face. Lisa frowned, her confidence wavering for the first time all evening. "Tenants? What is this? I manage this property." Mr. Carver adjusted his glasses with practiced precision. "Not anymore, Miss Lisa. Riverside Holdings purchased this building 3 years ago. I'm here tonight on behalf of the owner to address some irregularities in the management." Lisa's face began to drain of color. "That's impossible. I would have known about any sale. I would have been notified." I stepped forward, my voice steady but loud enough for every single relative to hear. "You weren't notified because you were never the owner, Lisa. You were just the manager. And you didn't know because you never bothered to check public records. You were too busy lecturing me about standing on my own feet to notice that I'd been building my foundation right under your nose." Whispers erupted around the room like small explosions. Cousin Mark muttered, "Wait, what the hell is happening?" My mother Emily's eyes went wide with shock. My father Stephen's mouth actually fell open. Lisa turned to me, fury breaking through her shock like lightning. "You're lying. This is some kind of sick joke." Mr. Carver opened his briefcase and placed a thick stack of documents on Grandma's old coffee table with a sound that seemed to echo through the suddenly silent room. Title deeds, tax receipts, renovation permits, property insurance policies. His voice was clear, professional, and devastating. All signed by the same person. Jessica Irving is the sole owner of this building and has been for 3 years. The room went absolutely silent. Even Grandma's old clock seemed to pause mid-tick. Lisa stumbled backward like she'd been physically struck. No, this can't be happening. This isn't real. I looked her straight in the eye, and for the first time in my adult life, I didn't look away first. You just tried to triple my rent on a building that doesn't even belong to you. You tried to evict me from my own property, Lisa. And you did it in front of everyone, thinking you'd finally put me in my place once and for all. The silence shattered with a dozen overlapping reactions. Aunt Ashley whispered, "Oh my God!" My father cleared his throat, shifting uncomfortably in his chair. My mother's wineglass trembled in her hand. Lisa shook her head violently, her perfect composure crumbling like a house of cards. "This isn't fair. You tricked me. No, Lisa." My voice was firmer now, stronger than it had ever been in this room. "I didn't trick you. I just stopped letting you trick me. I stopped accepting your version of who I was supposed to be." She opened her mouth again, but no sound came out. The power she had wielded so casually, so cruelly, had slipped from her fingers in an instant. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the overlooked sister. I wasn't the underachiever, the charity case, the one who needed her handouts. I was the one holding the deed. But I wasn't finished. "Mr. Carver," I said, my voice carrying a new authority that surprised even me, "could you please explain to my sister her current residential status?" The lawyer consulted his documents with professional detachment. "Certainly. Ms. Lisa Irving currently occupies Unit 4B under a month-to-month arrangement. As a tenant of Riverside Holdings, she's subject to the same rental agreements as any other resident." The gasp that erupted from the room was sharp, almost theatrical. Lisa staggered backward as though struck by lightning. "My unit?" she repeated, horrified. I folded my arms, years of humiliation sharpening my words into surgical steel. "Yes, Lisa, you raised my rent, in a building where you're just another tenant. Do you understand now? While you were busy performing superiority for everyone in this room, you were actually performing for your landlord." Aunt Betty whispered something that sounded like a prayer. Uncle Andrew muttered about karma under his breath. My cousin Mark, for once in his smug life, kept his mouth completely shut. Lisa's composure didn't just crack, it shattered entirely. "This isn't possible. I won't pay you a cent. I'll sue. "You'll pay or you'll leave," I cut her off, my voice steady as granite. "The same choice you so generously offered me 5 minutes ago. The market rate for your unit is actually $7,500. I've been giving you a family discount at $5,500, but since you seem to believe family discounts are bad business, I let the implication hang in the air." She looked around the room desperately, searching for support that would never come. My parents sat frozen, finally unable to shield their golden child from consequences. My relatives suddenly found their shoes fascinating. For the first time in 32 years, they couldn't rally to her defense, because she wasn't the victim anymore. I leaned closer, lowering my voice so only she could hear, though I knew every person in that room was straining to listen. "You thought you could crush me in front of everyone. You thought you could humiliate me one final time. But here's the truth, Lisa. While you were busy trying to climb above me, I was already standing higher than you ever knew." Her lips trembled like a child's. "You're being cruel." "No," I whispered back, feeling a lifetime of suppressed strength flowing through my voice. "I'm finally done being your victim." Mr. Carver closed his briefcase with a snap that sounded like a gavel striking wood. "That concludes my business for this evening. Ms. Irving, you have my number if you need anything else." He shook my hand with genuine respect, nodded to the stunned audience, and walked out. The silence that followed was deafening in its completeness. Lisa collapsed back into her chair, her once perfect posture broken, her eyes glassy with shock and something that might have been the first real humility of her adult life. I turned toward the door, feeling the weight of 15 years of belittlement finally sliding off my shoulders like an old coat I no longer needed. I didn't need their applause. I didn't need their approval or their validation. The look on my sister's pale face, the absolute silence of those who had once joined in her laughter at my expense, that was enough. That was everything. As I stepped into the cool night air, I realized something profound. Revenge hadn't been my plan when I bought that building. Survival had been. Independence. Self-respect. But sometimes, survival becomes its own form of perfect justice. The weeks that followed were a symphony of consequences I'd never dared to dream of. Lisa avoided me at first, retreating into a silence that felt like victory every single day. But then the calls started, pleading ones at odd hours, her voice trembling in ways that had once been unthinkable. "Jessica, can we work something out?" she begged one night, her golden confidence cracked like a broken mirror. "You can't really expect me to pay rent to you. I'm your sister." I almost laughed. The same sister who had weaponized that word for years, wielding it like a club to remind me that I was lesser, weaker, more dependent. Now she said it like a shield, fragile and thin. "You raised my rent to $6,800 without blinking," I reminded her calmly. "Why should I treat you any differently than you treated me?" Her silence on the line was enough. Then came my parents. My mother called, her voice brittle with barely contained fury. "You've humiliated your sister, Jessica. Do you have any idea what you've done to this family's reputation?" I let her words hang in the air for a long moment before answering. "Do you know what you did to me, Mom? All those years you stood by while Lisa belittled me, while she treated me like a burden instead of blood. You didn't care about reputation then, you cared about keeping peace with your golden child. Now, the truth is simply the truth." She hung up on me. But I didn't cry. I didn't crumble the way I would have years ago. Instead, I leaned into the rhythm of my new life. I managed my tenants with care and respect. I reinvested profits into building improvements, painting the halls in warm colors that reminded me of Grandma's gentle touch. When neighbors stopped me to thank me for fixing things Lisa had neglected for years, I felt pride swell in my chest like sunlight. One evening, as I was locking up the lobby after meeting with a contractor about new security cameras, I saw Lisa standing on the sidewalk. Her arms were crossed, her face pale under the streetlight, and she looked smaller somehow, diminished in a way that had nothing to do with physical size. She didn't say anything at first, just stared at me like she was searching for the sister who used to shrink when she raised her voice. Finally, she whispered, "You've changed, Jessica." I met her gaze without flinching, without the old familiar urge to look away first. "No, Lisa, I've just stopped letting you control the story." She blinked as though the words cut deeper than any anger ever could. She opened her mouth to argue, to fight, to reassert some shadow of her old dominance, but nothing came out. She turned and walked away, her expensive heels clicking against the pavement, the sound fading into the night like the echo of everything she used to be to me. I stood there for a long moment, breathing in the quiet. For the first time in years I felt truly free, not just from her, but from the crushing weight of needing her approval, her validation, her permission to exist as an equal. My life was mine now, built brick by brick, deed by deed, choice by choice, and that freedom was worth more than any revenge could ever be. It was justice served by my own hands, and it tasted like victory. If this story touched something deep in your heart, I hope you take this truth with you. You are not defined by the voices that try to diminish you. You are not bound to the roles others force you into. Sometimes the greatest power you'll ever claim is the courage to own your story and stand tall in it, no matter who tries to cut you down. If you felt the fire of justice in Jessica's journey, smash that like button, share this with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more stories of quiet strength overcoming loud arrogance. Drop your own story of standing up for yourself in the comments. I read every single one, and your courage might inspire someone else's breakthrough.